Funding for the Maddy Report is made possible by grants from BNSF Railway, Community Health System, Fresno State Associated Students, Inc., Harris Ranch Resort, Producers Dairy, the Spencer Family, and The Wonderful Company. Additional support provided by the Maddy Institute, the Public Policy Institute for the Valley's 4 public universities. This is the Maddy Report with Executive Director of the Maddy Institute, Blake Zanti.
Welcome to the Maddy Report. I'm Blake Zanti, Executive Director of the Maddy Institute, and your host. According to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, California's agricultural abundance includes more than 400 commodities, over a third of the country's vegetables, and over 3/4 of the country's fruits and nuts are grown in California. From the most recent stats on hand in 2023, California's farms and ranches received nearly $60 billion in cash receipts for their output, and agricultural exports totaled $23.6 billion in the prior year. Needless to say, California's agriculture is a vital industry in our state, and most certainly in the San Joaquin Valley. Joining me today is Karen Ross, the Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Secretary Ross, thanks for joining the Maddy Report
Blake,
today.
Thanks. It's nice to be invited.
Well,
Thank you.
We're glad that you're here. We have a limited amount of time, but
Sure.
definitely want to talk to you about some things going on in agriculture. The Maddy Institute inspires public leadership, and so I'm very curious. I ask almost every guest that comes on the show, how did you get your start in public service? And maybe tell us about your background in agriculture as well.
Well, it's not a very straight pathway, but I'm sure everybody's life story has some curves in it. I actually grew up on a farm in western Nebraska, and I didn't think I was meant to be in farming itself because I did all that when I was going to school. And through a whole bunch of circumstances, I ended up working on a political campaign for the friend of my boss at that time. And he ended up on the U.S. Senate Agriculture Committee, and that's where I first became very familiar with policy, especially farm bills. When you're in the Midwest, the farm bill is everything, and the farm bill is very important. And it was through that nexus that I fell in love with. I can be a part of agriculture, which is where my values come from. I still own part of the family farm, but I can do it in a different way. And policy impacts are equally positive or negative for agriculture. So it was like I found my own pathway to still be part of this fabulous sector.
That's great. You know, in talking about policy, tell us, we'll dive in a little bit more specifically later, but what are some current initiatives happening at the California Department of Food and Agriculture at the moment? Well,
of course, I'm sitting here 8 months later. We're still dealing with some of the residuals of avian influenza. Poultry, we've been able to clear that out fairly well within our poultry sector, but still some lingering cases in our dairy herds. That's been a massive undertaking. Vitally important that when we work through these kinds of invasive pest diseases as well as animal diseases, we have huge tight-knit partnership with the industry sector, their veterinarians, their whole network of people that they work with, in addition to our partnership with USDA. And I can't say enough good about making sure that that is a relationship that goes, it doesn't matter what the administration is, it doesn't matter what the political powers are. These programmatic partnerships are vital to making the delivery of services be as effective as they can be for what's happening on our farms and ranches.
What are some of those programs that farmers and ranchers can take advantage of through the CDFA? Maybe some things that are going on right now, or maybe some partnerships that you just spoke about with USDA. Maybe if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, and one that's it's one of our most impactful and foundational programs is all the work that we do on pest. We try to keep the bad bugs out because they're so devastating to a lot of our specialty crops in particular. And the partnership that we have with USDA and Custom Border Enforcement is vital to that because at least 40% of the cargo that comes into the United States lands in one of our ports of entry and then moves across the country. And as we know, a lot of invasive pests come through on cargo, as well as we love our hospitality sector, but we also are a hotbed for tourism, another way that carries that in. So this is where I get to really call out our great agricultural commissioners a lot of the trapping, making sure that we're really not only trying to keep it out at the border and with our 16 border stations, but also that we're working with the industry. We're doing trapping in our urban centers where a lot of times the pests are found. And if we can eradicate it there because we've rapidly been able to respond, that prevents a lot of additional pest management inputs on the farm level itself. So I always want to call that out because that requires partnership. But I'm very excited about some of our newer programs. We call them Climate Smart Agriculture. It's really about good conservation and really trying to make sure that the incentive dollars that we have received through the department are reaching every farmer that wants to take advantage of those. It can be healthy soils, it can be on-farm water use efficiency. I have to call out our dairy families because they've really leaned in to being part of sustainability and reducing methane emissions from livestock with dairy digesters or alternative manure management practices. And then, of course, there's a very important, I'm here in the Valley, the farmer program, which is engine replacement assistance for phasing out open field burning, as well as the food processing energy efficiency grants that are through CEC, which is our Energy Commission. And then one that I love to talk about, can't make me shut up, Farm to School. We really have seen so much momentum in this program. And what makes it unique is that it's focused on 3 pillars. One is, how do we support more small farms and the local economy of farming? This takes nothing away from the diversity of farm sizes, but 60% of the farms in California are less than 100 acres. And not everybody's going to participate in global markets, which are absolutely vital to the profitability of agriculture and our rural communities. But Farm to School is a way of doing the power of procurement from our institutions like schools and universities, coming to a Fresno State campus near you, but getting that more of what we grow locally, especially the fresh. And then it's had significant investment for the schools themselves, the nutrition directors, for some culinary training to really make that food appeal to the eye and to the palate. It can be healthy and we can serve it to the kids, but if it doesn't taste good or doesn't look very appetizing and it's not being eaten, it's not healthy. And then combining that with experiential learning, like when you plant a garden, you can learn about math and science, a little bit of art, some history. So it's a really comprehensive program.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back after this. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back to the Maddy Report. I'm joined by Karen Ross, the Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. We've just discussed her journey into public service and agriculture, as well as an overview of issues and programs at the forefront of the CDFA. Let's talk about some other things going on in agriculture. Sure. More broadly, you represent the entire state, which agriculture is not just here in the Valley, right, but is in all different parts of the state of California. But maybe you could talk more specifically about Valley agriculture and what role does it play in shaping the state's economy?
Well, it's huge. We wouldn't be California agriculture without, excuse me, the San Joaquin Valley. At any given time in the ag census, this valley will have 8 or 9 of the top producing counties in all of the United States. And some of our counties can produce more than many countries or other states. So it's easy to take it for granted when you live it and drive by it every day, but it's that impactful. And when you think about 25% of the food supply, you could say, comes from the Central Valley, what matters is what's happening here. And if we can take good care of this and really steward it, generations after us will be able to do the same thing. And I'm so grateful when I think about some of the infrastructure that's been put in place. You know, we're fortunate. If we can grow things in a Mediterranean climate, which means we can plant and harvest practically every day of the year. We can grow things that can't be grown in other states and countries, but it also takes infrastructure. Our water infrastructure, both at the local level as well as state. When we think about the university systems, the CSU system, what a gift that's been to so many people that's the local college that gave them the ladder up, as well as the UC system as a land-grant university. The infrastructure of our highways and how we move product. Goods movement is vital to meeting the demands for consumers in our state and across the country, and of course, around the globe. So the infrastructure of ports and goods movement also matters.
Now, you mentioned transportation a little bit there and movement of goods
Yes.
through our ports. something that's maybe a less fun topic, but certainly is on the minds of many people, tariffs and a lot of unpredictability around
Yes.
tariffs. Now, that's at the federal level. Obviously, you're at the state level. But what are you hearing from California farmers about the uncertainty with tariffs? And is there anything that California is doing to adjust to these changing conditions?
Well, first of all, it's still very uncertain. And so the pauses have been helpful. And I think when I speak to across the entire state, the farm community, the agribusiness community is very hopeful that the intent to negotiate better, more fair deals will be achieved. I worry about specialty crops tend to get left off the table or addressed at the very end because there's a lot of focus on the bulk commodities, which go to so many nations around the world. But the value, we're still the #1 ag exporter. People think of billions of tons of soy, wheat, and corn, but when you think about the high value of our tree nuts, our dairy sector is a big contributor to that. Our fresh fruits, like we're the high value part of that. And oftentimes we get left off the table, the tariff thing is addressed or maybe not adequately, but then there's all these phytosanitary issues that become trade barriers as well. And that's so specialized and it's easy to think, well, that only affects one state out of many. So these are the things we are hopeful will happen. In the meantime, the threat of tariffs have already softened, diminished some of the buying interest. We're already seeing people look at other places to source this. Our friends in Canada have reacted very negatively. They love the product, but they feel hurt that they're a neighbor and friend. And so some of the products being taken off shelves like wine. I'm hopeful that there will be good negotiations, that this will bring some rationalization to the tariff issue. If it's modest increases, some markets will be able to absorb that, but not all will. That means more, especially this time of the year with all of the beautiful, tasty tree fruit and table grapes. We just got some at a meeting where you and I were. These have to get into markets, and so they'll back up into the domestic market. And will there be enough demand? We don't want it to go to waste, but it could be a great boon for consumers, like eat more fresh stuff.
Absolutely.
From California.
And that's a great note to end on before we go right to a break. We'll be right back. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back to the Maddy Report. California is the 5th largest economy, and California farmers produce more than 400 different crops. The ag industry in California accounts for $50 billion in direct economic value. Secretary Ross, we've been talking a little bit about some of these things on a more broad scale, but how can California continue to maintain its status as an agricultural leader while also leading in areas like environmental sustainability and combating climate change?
Well, there's no doubt there's a lot of challenges to that right now, and production costs and input costs are clearly a significant driver. The availability of the high-skilled workforce that's part of harvesting what we grow right here in the Valley, having that available and feeling secure. And we know there's a lot of questions being raised right now because of immigration issues that are very important to the Central Valley, is creating some uncertainty in that. So there's always going to be challenges. And what's really made, I think, California agriculture so resilient is that we're very market-driven. We're not overly dependent on program crops in the Farm Bill. So we're responding constantly to markets. That means new varietals, doing things better, more efficiently, always focused on the best quality possible. That matters both for our retailers and food service people here, as well as our export markets. And increasingly, the entire value chain is looking for, what are you doing on energy? What are you doing on your water footprint? What are you doing on pest management? All of these things are important, but we need to share the burden of absorbing all of that with our buyers, and that's where some of the challenges are as well.
Well, and that's certainly important in making sure that people are buying California-grown products, and I think it's great that there are those relationships being built overseas. In terms of, recently we've had some unpredictable weather. We've had floods. We've had, droughts in the last 10 years. Yeah, the D word.
Yeah.
climate is changing, and we won't get into the debate of whether or not what's causing that or what's driving it, but what policies or initiatives is CDFA adopting to help farmers adapt to changing climate conditions?
Sure. So even as we speak, we're getting ready to release a draft for public comment on a California agricultural resiliency strategy. This is really trying to bring together some of the extreme weather events we've had recently. They just seem to be happening more frequently. We know that when we're getting our precipitation, those patterns have changed, and they're really dramatic, and that's flood and drought back to back, whatever that might be. Pest infestations that are new pests in different zones, all of these things. So wanted to pull out like the strategies from the scoping plan of the goals that we want to achieve, understanding energy efficiency and where that's going in the planning process to have enough energy for that. Understanding what we've done on adaptation as well as extreme heat, which is becoming more of an issue, not just for the crops that we grow, but for the hours that farm workers are able to be in the fields and the orchards to work on all of that. And pulling that in together into one strategy, looking at where are the additional needs for research and getting research results out faster. That's what stimulates innovation, really thinking through those kinds of things. Partnering with our sister agencies to understand all these variables, to make sure they understand how that's impacting all the way down at the field level. We also have big initiative through the Broadband Council and other initiatives around connectivity. You know, it's great we have a broadband plan. Getting it to a local community is great. Having an anchor institutions is great. But with all the new technology and the adaptation that's required for automation and innovation in the fields themselves, we also need to be able to have some sort of connectivity to deploy all that new technology, to capture all that data and do the analytics to help us make better decisions. So we're doing a lot of work on workforce development with partners here in the Valley. It's very exciting. Like, we want to equip the existing workforce as the new technologies are available, that nobody gets left behind, that those jobs of the future will be jobs that they can also achieve.
Absolutely. We'll be right back after this. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. Secretary Ross, thanks again for joining us on the program today. What are some examples of policy successes here in the San Joaquin Valley that are helping California agriculture? And maybe also talk about some of your work with students as well, and how that factors into this.
Well, you see students every day, and hopefully we're all doing a great job for them to understand how exciting agriculture is. It's always been valuable, it's always been impactful, it's a meaningful career, but the technology we just talked about a few minutes ago, the opportunities are endless. It doesn't matter if you're in marketing and you want to be going to all those global markets or working, the produce desk to sell to retailers across the country. But also when you think about all the regulatory things that we're trying to find more innovative, cost-effective ways of achieving the regulatory goals and minimizing the paperwork part of that, that creates a whole new set of career opportunities. I just think about the human resources and the management of that, and how important it is to have bilingual skills to be able to interface with the immigrant population that's so important to all of the industries here in the Valley itself, let alone of the marketing opportunities that opens up to be able to be a representative of the companies here. And then for me, I'm very passionate about ag education, and I look at the ag teachers in our high schools up and down the Valley in particular, and many of them are now at our community colleges, which are great partners with Fresno and other state colleges. I think the possibilities for a career in agriculture are endless. And if you are interested in policy, and many young people are, doing the internships like the Maddy Institute, and I'm so grateful to the internships that we've been able to benefit from, can give students a taste of what the policy world might be like. And there's some great careers both in the Agricultural Commissioner's Office as well as at the Department of Food and Agriculture. So I just want to hold up the flag for public service in agriculture.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that program.
I love
we're glad
it.
to have that partnership. As we're ending the show here, what does the future of California agriculture look like? I admire your positive view in championing California agriculture, but there are a lot of regulatory challenges, as you mentioned as well, and farmers are concerned about labor and, Sigma and, other regulatory burdens. How is California helping farmers navigate these things? And are there any emerging technologies that are changing the way farmers grow food to sort of help them adapt?
I think there's a lot that is out there. I think a lot of it is being trialed. It's really interesting how many farmers are doing on their own these practices around soil health. It's always been important, but really the deeper understanding of that and what that means for long-term productivity as well as climate resiliency, really keeping that soil covered, as well as understanding the water holding capacity that comes from that, the improved nutrient cycling, which could reduce inputs, but a lot of that is yet to be proven. I focus on wherever we can, being able to bring our agronomic expertise to the table of my sister agencies, where many of these regulations are, for them to understand the cumulative effect. Is there a more integrated way of approaching this to get to the outcomes we need without an excessive paperwork, time commitment, and expense burden? Like, are there other ways of doing that? And farmers have proven they come to the table. Look at the farmer program. This is about phasing out older engines that are spewing some of the air pollutants. We all care about having improved air quality here in the valley, and longtime farmers will talk about, we can see the Sierras now. There was a time period where we couldn't, but that's also related to the health of our citizens and childhood asthma. Farmers will come to the table if there are practical and cost-effective solutions, but we cannot bear the burden of everything for all things all at the same time. And of course, we know we have to solve our water issues. There's a lot of investment that's out there. It's in progress. We have to make sure, as Governor Newsom says, we have to build more, faster, and better. And that's why I think technology, really using all the data points that we have, are we making the best decisions that we have with the information we have today? Those are the kinds of ways I'd like to get more people and young people involved to help us think through this and do it better. We can't just do it the same old, this is the box, we're going to put everybody in the box and do it that way. I don't have specific answers. I just know the possibilities are there. And students from CSU Fresno and our community colleges and our UC system are going to be a part of the solution going forward.
Well, and that's a great note to end on. Secretary Ross, thank you for
see you,
joining the Maddy Report today.
It means a lot to have you invite me, so thank you.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining the Maddy Report. To learn more about the Maddy Institute, visit themaddyinstitute.org. The views expressed in the Maddy Report are those of the individuals participating in the program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Maddy Institute. If you'd like to share your thoughts about today's episode of the Maddy Report, please visit our website at maddyinstitute.com.